Now, the big thing about man is that he's the one creature in the universe, so far as we know, that not only has preferences, but he has preferences about his preferences. That's where morality comes in. It's not just that you want to be honest, you want to be an honest person, you want other people to be honest. You have preferences about other people's preferences. And in fact, most of us who are moral, sort of the word we use, would have a great deal of difficulty doing something that we wouldn't want other people to do. And we feel very bad about urging other people to do what we wouldn't want to do. We want our preferences to fall under these kind of general rules. And the word we use for people who are concerned that their preferences fall under these general rules, we call them moral or principled, and they follow the golden rule. And the fact is that this trait, I think the evidence is fairly clear, this trait, this important trait, is not distributed evenly among the races. I think there's a good deal of evidence that blacks, for example, are less concerned with this sort of golden rule way of thinking than whites are. There was a study I quote in my book about turn-taking, black behavior in turn-taking situations. They have more difficulty sort of waiting their turn while the other guy gets his turn. They're much more inclined impulsively to burst in. Many people, it's sort of something that's discussed even in Hollywood, the fact that blacks talk back to the movies in the movie theater, which shows a lack of empathy for the people that just want to watch the movie. I've taught philosophy, this is interesting, I've taught philosophy now for 30 years in what is called a diverse student body. And an interesting kind of informal experiment. Whenever you introduce an ethics class, you begin by raising this question to the students. Suppose you go into a supermarket and the cashier gives you too much money, $10 too much money. Should you return? There's no chance that you can be caught. If you pocket it, you've got it. What should you do? Now, of course, what you hope is they'll all say you should return it, and then you raise the question why, and you start to discuss it. Occasionally, you'll get someone who'll say, no, keep it. It's stupid to return it. And I found that that disproportionately is said by the black students. Their favorite phrase is, you'd be a fool to return it. And if you ask them, well, how would you like it if you were the cashier? They either say, well, they don't usually say, tough luck on me. They say, I'd make sure that didn't happen. Sort of not really catching the point. Now, I think myself, this is kind of speculative, that this concern with principled behavior is connected to the development of science. Because one of the things that characterizes scientific explanation and scientific understanding is the search for general laws. When you explain something, you're trying to show that the particular event in question fell under some general pattern of behavior, which we would call a formula. If you say the airplane crashed, and I shouldn't give this example, some of us will be flying out in a few minutes in this hurricane. And so the airplane crashed because of wind shear. What you're saying is that whenever, through a certain combination of forces, the lift on the wing falls below a certain point, then the airplane crashes. You're committing yourself to that law of nature. And if you say, well, that's why it happened, but the next time it happens like that, the airplane will stay in the air, then people wouldn't really know what you were talking about. So in sort of the Western way of looking at it, your behavior is defensible just in case you can bring it under rules, and you can make sense of nature just when you can bring it under certain rules. So I think the two things go together. Now, speaking of efficiency, I want to just digress, just because it's so interesting, some research that's been done on why Western morality is actually, never mind sort of better from a cosmic point of view, why it's more efficient than any other moral system ever developed, any other system of interpersonal rules. And I'll describe a very interesting experiment that's been done just in the last couple of years, been replicated on white populations. This is a game called Take It or Leave It. This is how the game works. Somebody gives me $10, and I divide it any way I want into two piles. 1 cent here, $9.99 over here, 5 and 5, 1 and 9. I then offer you one of the piles. I can offer you 1 cent, I can offer you $5, I can offer you $9. And this is the way the game works. If you take my offer, you get it and I get the remainder. If you don't take my offer, we got to give the money back and nobody gets anything. Now, artificial as this seems, this is the way a lot of bargaining situations and interactions work in real life. I find some gold in my ground, in ground I own. I want you to dig it out. I offer you a certain percentage of the profit if you dig it out. What percentage should I offer you and what percentage will you take? If we can't come to an agreement, that's like the money being taken back. We have words, don't get along, and the gold stays in the ground. Now, classical economics and common sense predicts that you will take any offer I make you. I say, okay, I get to keep $9.99. Here's a penny for you. Want that deal? Now, you might think, sure, I mean, you're a penny better, right? Well, this has been run on, I have here, German, American, Yugoslav, Japanese, and Israeli subjects. No offer is ever accepted that deviates much beyond 50-50 split. No offer is ever accepted when the recipient gets less than $2.50. What is going on here? Because it seems the guy that turns down the offer is actually punishing himself to punish you, the maker of the offer, for making this inequitable offer. It is, social scientists were amazed when they found this. In this take it or leave it game, any deviation from intuitive equity gets turned down. It shouldn't happen. The reason seems to be an innate sense of equity. No one's done any heritability studies on this. It would be fantastic to let Bouchard in Minnesota run this game on the identical twins reared apart. See what happens. But people seem to have an innate sense of fairness and are willing to penalize unfairness even at some cost to themselves. Now, on the face of it, this moralistic indignation seems to make no sense, but it is profitable in the very long run. The reason is that egoists, presumably, who would want to make a very lopsided offer to you would not be willing to accept a lopsided offer made to them. But in a society in which everybody is sort of recognized as 50-50 is the kind of bargain you make, where sometimes I'll be on the giving end, sometimes I'll be on the receiving end, can make these bargains and everybody ends up a little richer. In a society where everybody has this kind of sense of equity and are willing to punish deviations from equity, we can make this deal whereby you dig up the gold, I get some of the profit, we split the profit, and we're both better off. This is one of the ways that Western morality seems superior. And computer simulations, this is quite interesting, a lot of computer simulations have been done on different strategies in this game. Though I've described a strategy that's known in this field as Fairman, as opposed to the offer 1 cent and try to keep it all. That's called a gamesman. There's another strategy called Mad Dog, where you offer 9 but only take 1 for some insane reason. And then there's a strategy called Easy Rider, where you offer 1 cent but take anything the other guy offers. And computer simulations have been run, and not invariably, it's complicated, but by and large, this sense of you get exactly as much as I get, in the long run, always gets everybody the most, surprisingly enough. Now, what I would like to do, what I would love to see done, are these take it or leave it game experiments designed that are sensitive to racial differences. Because given the fact that A, blacks seem more egoistic and less empathetic, and also at the same time seem very much sort of stand up to have an exaggerated sense of being dissed when they don't get what they think they deserve, my prediction would be that you would find very few bargains actually made in this take it or leave it game. And that if you set a bunch of blacks and a bunch of whites going, say, and iterate this thing 500 times, at the end of the day, the whites would be much richer than the blacks. I don't know that that's so. It's not been done, but that's my prediction. And in that sense, to get back to the general theme, while Western morality and Western sense of equity may not be better in some cosmic sense, it is more efficient. It leads to greater wealth than the kind of short-term, take what I can get now at this moment, which more egocentric, less golden rule type people would operate under. Okay, Rabbi Schiller?
The notion of the golden rule being a superior trait would seem to be true within the tribe, but the application of that outside the tribe, which is particularly something that Westerners do, might that not in fact be an inferior trait that Westerners have as opposed to other tribes on the earth?
Yes, and technically in the literature, this is known as the problem of Nash equilibrium. You want a fancy... That's right, because if you meet somebody else who doesn't go for this 50-50 strategy, you're going to have a lot of trouble. You're going to make a 50-50 split, and he's going to be waiting you out for the 9-1, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you're going to get mad, and trouble is going to arise. So the way this works out is, right, there are a lot of different what are called equilibrium positions. And what's happened in evolution is that we've evolved this one within our own group. That's absolutely right. And indeed, I think a lot of something we can't, why are whites so intimidated by this black anger? I think what's going on is that sort of the rules of negotiating that we evolved with each other can't really handle the different rules. It's quite right.
One of the things that seems to be so frequently lacking among blacks is foresight. They just don't look ahead. And I think it's one of the flaws of the justice system that you tell this kid that next March she's got a court date and it means nothing.
No, it's looking ahead. Just a quick answer. This is part of what I was trying to get at with these bargaining games. Because suppose you're very greedy and make this kind of greedy offer. You get 10 cents and I get to keep $9.90. That shows great lack of foresight, because it doesn't occur to you that, oh, well, next time maybe the game will be played in reverse and I'll get screwed next time. Whereas someone with a lot of foresight would be more apt to think, well, let me split it fairly, 50-50, so the next time when the positions are reversed, a bargain can be made. So I think a good experimental way of getting at this lack of foresight would be experiments of these games. I'm very enthusiastic about that.